Okay. So when we're ready here, just finding equal standing. And just taking the time you need to feel the soles of the feet, balancing the weight. And then energizing the leg muscles. And again, holding gently onto the leg bones. And working with the legs, see if you can add even just that little bit more contact through the soles of the feet. And then release the hips, let the tailbone drop. Coming from the hips up the back body, along the spine, between the shoulders, the shoulder blades, up the base of the skull. And we're going to take a breath here. When we do have our inhale, let the ribs widen, have them naturally lift. Breathe in up to the collarbones or the base of the throat. At some point, we're exhaling. And as the ribs release, we'll see if we can keep the weight of the shoulders off of our ribs. And when we're ready, breathing out, we'll take the hands onto the abdomen. And we'll just rub gently and just circle over the whole abdominal wall. Just a light pressure coming down onto the tops of the thighs. And then let's go behind and look at the back of the waist. So again, using the hands, the fingers to see into that first layer where we've got our lymph system. So it's a gentle pressure, just helping the lymph move up the body. And then we'll come up higher. We'll work our way back up around the shoulders, the shoulder blades. Just exploring where the hands can gently rub. We are going to rub right into the armpit. We can be a lot slower than I'm moving. We can just find our own tempo here. So we're working below the collarbones, onto the base of the neck. And, a couple of times we move our elbows wide and kind of take the weight of those shoulders again off of the ribs and internally opening up this space, right, where the collarbone is above and below, creating some room here. This is a key zone for our lymph system. This is where the lymph returns into the bloodstream. Just below the collarbones. And then we'll come up along the neck. And we're warming up a bit here. So really allow the hands to explore. Let them find where to rub. Maybe up to the base of the skull. And a gentle rubbing across the face, around the jawline, gently around the eyes, around the ears. Okay, and then when we're ready to, we're going to run the hands again down the torso. We'll come back to our belly. And then let the knees soften. And today we'll just rub our way down. So if you think of the lymph system, we want to help the fluid lift up. So we're not pushing fluid down. We run the hands down, but think of gently bringing fluid up. And we'll just make our way lower down. So in the legs, we've got a whole set of lymph nodes behind the knees. So we can give them a lift. And letting our knees bend, we can just work our way lower down, heading toward the ankles. And again, that energy of lifting, gently bringing fluid upward. And let's work our way up again. We'll come above the knees when we're ready here. And working thighs, working up towards legs meeting hips. And when we're ready, we're a bit taller. Most of our lymph nodes are on the inner thighs, coming into the inner groins. And so at some point here, we're back in the low belly, helping lift. And then we'll just slow our fingers down, our hands down, and come in just about pubic bone. And we'll do a big inhale in a moment, but first lengthen the back, drop the tailbone, just feel our alignment. When we're ready for our inhale, up the center line. Elbows lifting shoulders and releasing arms when that's comfortable. Taking that elongation. And our exhale. Letting our gaze drift up as we carefully reach up, lengthening the back body. And keep the weight of the shoulders from just sinking onto the ribs. So keeping that not happening, keeping that lift. Okay, now as the arms descend, let the knees bend and we'll melt over. So simply releasing head and neck, dropping over, and let's take a full breath down here. To come up, we use an inhale, running the fingers up the legs. all the way onto the low belly, upper center line. Elbows, pull the shoulders up. And when we release the arms up, keep the shoulders comfortable. What we always want is that lift that helps us extend. And this time we'll take our arms forward. And this time we'll push out and then melt over. Before we come up, just have a gentle rubbing around the ankles, up the backs of the legs. And when we're ready to come up, use the in-breath. Up our center line. And we'll melt over one more time. Whatever's a comfortable move through the upper back, releasing over, making sure the head is able to let go, the neck release. And we'll come up our legs when we're ready. And let's stay tall. We'll just let the arms come down. So once we're tall, just imagine we've got a cloak. The thing about a cloak is the weight of the cloak draws the collarbones open. So if you let the arms hang, and just that little bit in the shoulders to absorb the weight of the cloak, and let that weight draw the collarbones apart. And again, keeping the shoulders being dragged down the back body, just a tiny bit of lift, a little bit of energy there. Reaching up the neck. We're going to keep the upper body pretty much exactly where it is, and then take the feet out, and then swing the heels out, and we're going to be about hips width apart here. Feel where the tailbone is now that we've moved the legs. Okay, and then when we need our breath, up our center line. Now let's keep ourselves upright when we're exhaling, keep our spine long, and then simply bring the arms forward. So rather than pushing out, just hold the arms out. Now let the knees bend. And here's our exhale. And gently press forward. And then when you need the in-breath, coming back up. Take the time when you're told to finish the inhale, let the gaze go up, lift the shoulders. And again, when it's the exhale, arms are wide and then forward. Let the hips sink down. We're going to lean forward a tiny bit. We're not trying to lean forward, it just is needed. And we'll let the hips sink a bit, we'll press a bit. And when we want to get out of here, we'll take the arms up, straightening up. And we're going to stay, let's give ourselves an extra breath tall. And for that extra breath, we'll look forward. And then again, when we need our out breath, knees are bending. And we're pressing out in the hands and really only leaning forward enough so that we can lower down. And just for ourselves, feeling where that is. When we need our breath, inhaling up. And now we're going to stay tall, and we get our exhale. We'll just release the arms down. And imagine you're still wearing that cloak. So we're going to spread the collarbones from the effort we need to hold the cloak. At the same time, sink the tailbone. And then we'll put the hands here on the waist, top of the hips. And we're going to take our right side back, looking over our right shoulder, release the right arm and send it behind us. And when we inhale, bring the arm up and turn forward. And then the exhale, run it down the opposite side of the body. And that right hand, as we inhale, comes up the right side. And same for the left. And then using this hand, we're running a hand over the body and use it to make contact. Be aware of the sensation. And we'll do our last set. And then once we're back up, we'll keep our hands on our hips. We'll let the knees soften. And let's go right into a figure 8. So loop the hips to one side, back into the center, loop to the other side. And really let the knees flow. Let the hips and knees just move as they need to. Let the torso, the upper body, just flow with this movement coming out of the hips. And at some point, we're going to cross into the center. And at that point, we're going to switch direction. And then we'll come back into the center. And once we make it back to center, we'll bend the knees a little more and bring the hands onto the thighs. Add some weight for the hands, through the hands. And now we're going to circle at the diaphragm. So take the low ribs in a circle around the spine. And again, we're really releasing the back body, the torso to respond to this circle. We need to switch our direction at some point. Simply being aware of the weight through our feet as we make this circling. So we can keep the weight even. And when it feels like we've done the same amount in each direction, we'll pause into our center. And then add weight through the hands again, sink the hips a little bit, move the hips forward and press the vertebra back and upward, reaching in the neck. And then we come to our inhale, take the chest forward and up, the hips back, reach along the neck and tip the tailbone in. Find that energy in the low belly as we try to move the tailbone in, keeping our hips back there. And reversing with our exhale, taking the hips underneath again, pushing vertebra back. And then we're going to come tall from here. So just soften a bit. Use an inhale. Slide the hands up the thighs onto the belly, up our center line. As we lower the arms, find that inner cloak that positions our shoulders, keeps us from just dumping their weight onto our ribs, gives the ribs a space in which to move as we breathe. So keeping ourselves tall, this is for the moment. We'll put the hands on the hips. We're going to work with the head, the neck. So with the eyes, just the eyes moving, look to the right. So the face is forward, the eyes look right. And check the spine, that tailbone's dropping, length up the back body. And then eyes forward. And then let's try eyes left. Lengthening in the neck and just the eyes again. It's very tempting for the nose to start drifting to the left. Let's take the eyes forward again and we'll look right again. Now this time, once we're looking right, lower the right ear towards the shoulder. Now we're not forcing it down. We don't want to tip ourselves over. Initially, we're keeping vertical and simply lowering the ear down, keeping the spine upright. And then coming back up, still looking right. And then once we're tall, the head's upright, then we'll look center. We'll just take a moment here, realign our back body. We're going to look left when we're ready. And then the head goes left. So the ear going toward the shoulder without the spine bending initially. And then bringing the head up again, eyes forward. Okay, now look left and take the head to the right. So going only as far, we start to feel how we tip over, and we're not going to do that yet. We're going to try to keep ourselves upright. And then we'll bring the head back up, and then we'll take the eyes forward. And we'll look right. We're going to tip the head to the left. Only so far, so we can keep our spine up. And then let's bring the head back up again and pause for a moment in center. And just take a moment to realign the spine, sink the tailbone. Okay, we're going to do this again, but now we will add more of the spine to this. So we'll keep the eyes going opposite. So we're going to look to the left, tip the head right, down to ear toward shoulder, and then let the shoulders sink, let the spine bend over to the right. And then let's come up. And once we're tall, we'll just take that moment, looking forward, eyes forward, feel tall, tailbone is sinking. And then we'll look to the right. Release the ear toward the left shoulder. And then allow the spine to start to curve to the left. And then let's come up. Okay, so we'll do one last round, but now we'll get the hands more involved. So we're going to put the fingers on the neck. So it may be the little fingers touching the base of the skull. I mean, honestly, wherever it's comfortable for us, right? Maybe slide around a bit, find today's best place. And what we'll do, we'll look left, we'll tip right, but that feeling of the right elbow dropping, the left elbow gently lifting a bit. Now use the weight through the feet to help you determine where's your distance. When the weight really starts to shift to one foot, then we're really far enough. And we want to start working now with the engagement through the core to keep the weight as even as we can in the feet. And then let's come up. So as we come up, being aware of the weight, kind of pouring ourselves back up, coming neutral, lengthening the neck, sinking the tailbone. So now the eyes have to go right, elbows dropping, elbows lifting, staying tall, even though we're bending, we're keeping as much length as makes sense. We're being aware of the weight through our feet. And then let's bring ourselves back up again. Now, once we're tall, let's use these fingers. They're on our neck. Let's gently rub the neck, going up to the base of the skull, coming as low as feels appropriate, and just softly rubbing on the neck. And maybe as we're ready to exploring, kind of below the ears, the sides. And if we lift our chin a little bit, all around these big muscles at the side of the neck. Okay, and then once or twice, we're just going to land our fingertips behind the shoulders. And then as we're ready to, we drop the elbows and there is some real weight that we can press into the shoulders here as we drag over the big muscles. And then as we come across those muscles just above the collarbones, much lighter, gentle pressure. And below the collarbones, we'll just send the elbows up again. We'll get the elbows up and walk the fingers back. So more weight on the big muscles, softer as we cross off them. As we come over the collarbones and come below. And here's our last one. So here we'll drag below the collarbones, and then we'll just drag. So we're below the collarbones at kind of the top ribs here. And we'll just get a couple of strokes, top ribs, and then come into the center, come a bit lower, not dig, but find the tips of the fingers and just go to the edge of the breastbone, right? So you can feel where the ribs come into the breastbone and put the fingers between the ribs and just kind of snuggle the fingers in and gently draw apart and then come a bit lower. Same thing, just kind of where ribs touch breastbone and just snuggle outward and lower again. So kind of coming down notch by notch, just gently. And we can feel at some point, yeah, we're leaving the breastbone and there's the diaphragm and there's where we stop. And when we get there, just slide the hands down and just give the arms a little wag, give them a shake. And then let's start with our left hand. So we'll bend the wrist, we'll rotate the fingers back, the thumb outward. We're going to slip the arm back behind the hips. And then we're going to move the head away from the arm. So face stays forward, we'll drop the head over to the side. And at some point, we can start to feel the draw that creates. And we can feel the nerve being drawn, right, along its length. And we want to keep that very gentle. That's the mildest sensation. If that becomes strong, we ease off. So now let's rotate the face back toward that left side. So this left arm, gently press out through the palm, just softly. And then the eyes, let's have them look. So I'm going to take my right fingers and I'm just going to rest them here on the collarbone. And I want to tip my head, but I want to use my eyes to look there. Won't really see those fingers. And then working inside with all these feeling tones, these sensations, we're exploring where we can create a gentle stretching here. Okay, let's release. So release the head, the neck, and the arm. And just give that arm whatever it wants. It might want to hang there, it might want to shake, but just see what it wants. So the legs, right? They may want a different placement. You know, they've been under the hips for a long time, maybe under the shoulders just to freshen up the joints. But listen to the body. When you've got your position, your stance, we'll do the other arm. So right arm, we're going to rotate it outward. We'll send it back. Now, when we send it back, actually the reason we bring the hand up, right, is so we can be alert to the shoulder going back. And that's not what we want, right? We want the arm to go back. And lengthen the neck, maybe drop the hips a little bit. And now move the head without the face turning. Just move the head away from that right side. That gentle reach down the arm. And now let's rotate the head back toward the right. And then have the eyes look down. Okay, now let's undo. Just soften and release the head, the neck, the arm and shoulder. Come back into the center. And let's change our legs again. Let's bring them back close together. And just lift one knee, then the other. Maybe shake the leg. And let's play a little bit. So take a couple of steps just to kind of feel the hips, know their placement. When you're ready to, right knee comes up, reach behind and see if the left hand, opposite hand can just tap that foot. And, you know, try a few in front. And let's try a few behind. Now, if you can touch that foot, let's do something where we don't use the hand and just try kicking for the opposite glute. And see if you can touch the heel to that glute. Okay, and let's switch to coming up in front. And then rather than reach across, send the foot forward. So knee is still a bit bent. We want to minimize that need to lean forward. We want to get these really big muscles, right, that define the core of the body. We want to make them work. We want to get them to warm up. And then maybe behind again, side to side. Okay. And then just pausing. So, we could use that for, what do they call that? High intensity intervals, I think, something like that. So 2 minutes of that, or as long as we can do it, get our heart rate up, it's definitely going to work. But we won't do that today. So we'll get our feet close together. And we'll start with the left leg, touch the toes in front, and just skate the foot out to the side and come into the standing leg and slide up the standing leg and just linger for a moment and slide back down, toes touch the mat, and just slide the toes back. When that leg's extended, bend the front knee, put the heel down, balance here for a moment, drop the tailbone. When you're ready to leave, let's kick forward. Well, toss is a better image than kick, right? So we want to keep the muscles as soft as possible. So there's the right skating out, in and then climbing up, and we can just linger for a moment and then slide back down, and the toes graze back. And then to put that heel down, we bend the front knee. So drop the tailbone. It's nice to place the tailbone here, and then toss. Okay, we'll do the left again. It's almost the same, right? We're going to take that foot back, but rather than just put the heel straight down, let's bend both knees. And then when we come up, we'll put that back foot down. Again, place the hips. And when you're ready to leave, so for the right, it goes forward, goes out, in and up. We get a moment, come back down. Toes reach back. Once the leg's straight, bend both knees. Come back up. Now put the heel down, place the core, and when you're ready, okay, let's do one last set for each side, and then we're done with that. Okay, cool. Okay, so from here, we're going to get our feet wider apart. And we're just going to go to that comfortable width where we're still strong in our feet. We can place the hips at this distance. You can still control the hips, sink the tailbone. Energy down the legs, length up the core. And we'll just float the arms up. We want to position the arms so they feel like we're just floating them on top of the water. And we're standing in the water just that deep. And they're out from our shoulders, resting on the water. Now, when you're ready to go under the water, turn out the right leg, keep the hips forward, press into both feet, and then tip the hips. So hips move a bit to the left, and we're naturally going to reach to the right. And just imagine we're still keeping the arms on the water. And when we're ready to go under, we just exhale down. So this upper arm doesn't have to be up in the air, right? That's often kind of a disservice to us because we get so involved with the shoulder not being happy in that position. And really, we want to work from the hips up the spine, down the legs. So often a very useful place for this upper arm is on the sacrum, on the low back, on the hip. We want to be able to be here and work down into our feet, out along our neck, and feel strong and comfortable. And then maybe the arm goes up. If the arm does go up, lift up the arm. Okay, so when we're ready to leave, let's put the arm on the hip first and touch the sacrum. And as you come up, just feel that sacrum. And then turn neutral, pause here. And just rest the hands on the hips for a moment. And we come up and there's still that tip just kind of inside the hip. And we want to bring that neutral. And maybe take the time to all through our core, make those adjustments so we feel vertical, we feel square. Okay, so once again, we're going into the water. And it's really fun to see if you can find that place where the arms really are floating on the water. And now the left leg's going to turn out, keep the hips forward, and then reaching out, tip the hip. And we're naturally going to reach here. And then the arms down. So we'll let that arm go up for a moment, just like it's our snorkel. And then from there, when we're ready, at least explore having it on the hip. And it's a useful place. It helps us be more aware of where the hips are placed. It's very easy to shove the hips back, right? And now my chest is forward. And I carefully want to place myself kind of like I'm between two sheets of glass. The arm doesn't have to be up, but if we feel we've placed our legs and our spine and our core and the shoulders okay, then we will lift up. Now we are going to leave with the hand on the hip, right? And find the sacrum. And as you come up, both anchor into the feet, press lightly on the sacrum, feel that movement, bring the legs neutral. Use the hands on the hips to feel into balancing the hips, energy down the legs, length up the spine. Okay, so we're going to do the twist variation. And to do that, we need the feet a bit closer. Now, keep the hands on the hips. We're going to turn to the right. So the right heel will swing in, and that starts as turning. The left heel turns out, and that turns us more to the right. And then just play and adjust the feet so you feel your hips have gone to the right side. Now drop the tailbone. It's easy here to push the tailbone back. See if you can sink the tailbone. Feel the weight in the feet. So if you can equalize as best you can weight in the feet. Keep the hands on the hips. And right now, all we're going to do is slowly tip forward. Now be prepared to bend the front knee if you find the knee feels strained. Just come about halfway down. Don't feel there's a height you have to go to. Instead, find a natural stopping place and lengthen along the spine. Reach along the neck. So let's let the face go toward the mat. Now, sink the tailbone, press on the feet, lift up, come back tall, and let's turn to the front. Again, long enough to the front to feel the placement of the hips. And then for the other side, we'll swing the left heel in, swing the right heel out, and then we'll make the adjustment. So we're turned to the side. Take the length, drop the tailbone, press on the feet, and hinge forward from the hips. So we're not moving from the waist. We're right at the bottom of the hips where the legs come into the hips. Natural stopping point. We lengthen the spine, let the face be downward. Look after the front knee especially. It may want to bend. And now let's inhale up, pressing on the feet, dropping the tailbone, lifting up through the core, turning to neutral. Level the hips, lengthen the spine. We're going to go back to the right side. So making our way to the right. First thing, feet strong, hips to the side, tailbone dropped, legs strong, and lengthen the back body. Now, both hands onto the very top of that right thigh. Tailbone drops, move from the hips, not the waist. Start to go forward again and let the hands slide down the front leg. Face toward the mat. Now, see if you can, with that left hand, the back hand, touch the fingertips on the ground. Initially, it doesn't matter where you put them. Just put them somewhere you can make contact with the fingers, add a bit of weight there. And then the right hand, put it on the sacrum again. Now start to turn the chest to the right and the face to the right. Keeping the neck long, connect to the feet. And then turn the chest back down toward the mat. Now that left hand, run it up the right leg, press on both feet, draw tall. Turn to center. Turning left when we're ready. Pausing here to balance in our feet. Okay, so both hands top of left thigh, hinge from the hip sockets, going long, sliding the hands down the leg. And when we're low, see if we can touch the right fingertips to the ground, left hand on the sacrum. Keep the spine long, turning the ribs to the left. Face left. Stay in touch with both feet. Okay, turning chest back toward the mat, faces facing downward. And we're going to bring that right hand up the left leg as we push into the feet to draw tall. We'll turn to the front. We're going to do this once more for each side, but now we're going to take the feet a little wider apart. And then let's pivot to the right and work a bit with the feet. They may be even now be willing to be able to go a little further distant. But what's key here is the hips are comfortably turned to the right side, and let that decide the distance between the feet. So if the feet get too wide, the other thing that starts to happen is you can't drop the tailbone. So there's our two clues, right? The hips cannot turn fully to the side, and we can't control the tailbone. If that's the case, we have to nudge the feet in a little bit. So we'll keep the hands on the hips, and let's just swing forward, moving from the hips. And as we're dropping down, we're going to drop the left arm down and place the left arm where it's useful. So potentially fingertips touching or fist touching, palm touching. It's useful if we don't have to distort the core to use that position. So we need that to be our guide. Once we have our place, we start to turn the ribs to the right, to the front leg. As we turn toward the front leg, draw the belly in. The face turns as well. Keep weight on the back foot. So move the hips back a little bit to find the back foot. And then that upper arm, it's either going to stay on the sacrum or we're going to lift it up, pointing the fingers at the ceiling. Stay in touch with the back foot. Lengthen in the neck. Okay, so we're going to put the upper arm back on the hip. If we lift it up, we'll turn the chest toward the mat. We'll start to push up into the feet. We're flowing up, and we're going to bring the hand up the leg. We'll come up tall, back to neutral, and just pause for a minute. Just feel all these sensations in the body. Feel where there's the sensation of having worked. Especially on this move, this pose cycle, we have to really look after our knees. And here's our chance to just check in. If we're good to go, we're heading to the left. The hips comfortably left, our ability to drop the tailbone, and we use that as a guide to the distance between our feet. We'll keep the hands on the hips here. Stay in touch with the back foot. Hinge over from the hips. And as you hinge over, you can even move the hips a tiny bit back here. Stay in touch with the back foot. And then when you're ready, that right arm releases down. Now, when we can put the right arm to use from there, we're going to turn the chest toward the front leg, the left. Keep working with weight on the back foot. Keep moving the hips back enough to connect to the back foot. And if we're comfortable, maybe that top arm floats up. Okay, let's take the top arm down. If it came up, touch the sacrum, turn the chest toward the mat, push on the feet, come up with that hand running up the front leg. As we get tall, we'll bring hands onto the hips. And then from here, this distance we have between the feet, let's just explore it a little bit. Pull the heels in a bit and bend the knees and put the hands on the thighs. So we're leaning weight through our arms. Arms are pretty straight, and we're leaning enough weight that you should be able to, inside the hips, just relax and feel the tailbone, the hips kind of move under a little bit, and then lift the chest up. So do find the place where you're using the arms just like a brace. play a little bit with this distance. So there's a real feeling of being able to drop the hips. So it's really a different position for the knees. Now we're going to have a twist through the core body. So keep the left arm straight. Bring the elbow, or not the elbow, the shoulder toward the center line. Bend the right elbow, look to the right. And once you're in this position, see if the hips will sink a little bit lower. When you're ready with an inhale, come to center. Straighten both arms for a moment, drop the hips again. And now right shoulder toward the center line, left elbow bends out. We're going to turn to the left. And then back to the center when we're ready. Flowing round to the other side. And keep being prepared to allow the hips to sink down when you're at either side. And then let's go back around to center. And now from here, let's take ourselves lower down. So bend the knees a bit so you can touch the hands to the ground. Walk the hands forward. And just come into a nice sloppy version of a downward dog. And just wag the hips side to side. Let the shoulders flow. And just play a little bit here. Knees bending, shoulder moving forward and back, hips side to side, neck moving freely. Heels rising and falling. And we'll just play another couple of moves. And then when we're ready to, just sink the knees down. So we're on hands and knees. And we're just going to take a handful of cat and dog stretches. Again, just playing with the body, giving the body what it needs, the movements that are fun in the moment. And then we're going to swing side to side. So how to think of this? Do you ever see, everybody knows, I think, using an old tire as a swing under a tree, it's hanging off of that big limb. Now imagine you were tying up that tire and you had the tire horizontal. And you've got 4 ropes coming off that tire to that big limb. So 1 rope to a shoulder, 1 rope to a hip, and we've got 4. And so that tire, that's really, we're filling that space in that tire. And we just want to be able to flow side to side, blow about in the wind. Okay, when we're ready here, we're going to slow down and we're going to drop back into child's pose. And so allow the hips to sink back. And we're going to put the arms where it would be comfortable for us. So perhaps forehead resting, arms releasing. Our version right now. Okay, so reach out the arms. We'll get the elbows off the ground, the arms long, and from there we'll just pick ourselves up and we'll get the knees under the hips Let's tuck our toes under initially. We just want to adjust the distance between the hands so we're comfortable. Now, when we inhale, sink the hips back as far as they'll go. Sorry, that's an exhale, sinking the hips back, let the head drop down. On the inhale, pick up or move the torso forward. And just take the shoulders out roughly over the palms. And now take the face forward, let the hips release down. Hips won't necessarily drop very far. We're going to tuck our tailbone, lift our heart. And then when we're ready to, we're going to send the hips back again. Going to tuck the tailbone, push the hips back. Now, when you drop the hips down, maybe you can creep the hands forward just a little further. And then use an inhale again, coming up, taking the shoulders, the torso forward. And at some point, we're able to release the hips down, lift the chest, looking outward, lift along the neck. And we're going to flow back again. Just going to work here with our timing. And we're going to come up and go forward again. Now, when you release forward, lift the heart. Now, you got the toes tucked under the knees down. See if you can just take the weight out of the knees and really push on the hands and lift the shoulders. Keep the tailbone tucked, the belly strong. And then maybe rock the heels back and forth a small amount. And then put the knees back down, move the hips back. And then take the knees wider apart. And the big toes close. And let's drop all the way down. Okay, let's lift up again. And bring the knees about hips width apart and just flow into a couple of cat and dog stretches again. And really on that inhale, when we sink the spine down, lift the shoulders up. On the exhale, we want to keep the shoulders lifted, but press the vertebra up, push the shoulder blades up, bring the hips under. And back and forth a couple of times. And do let the torso move forward and back. If that's coming out naturally, let that happen. Okay, and we'll come neutral. Now we'll adjust a little bit. We want the hands really under the shoulders and a little closer than shoulder width. And we're going to get equal weight through our hands. We're going to lift our shoulders, sink our tailbone. And now move the shoulders in a circle above the wrist. So it's a big flat circle above our wrists. And not too fast. It's easy to get going fast and not really sense the movement. We want to be very polite to our wrists. And when you move into your center line, switch the direction. Okay, and then coming back in neutral, let's get off the wrists and come onto the forearms. And then we'll get a couple of breaths back in child's pose. So maybe flatten the feet and widen the knees and drop back. And we'll just let the arms rest, forearms resting, forehead resting down. I'm just pausing there for a moment. Okay, then let's pick ourselves up. Okay, one last thing. Bring the knees in close under the hips, tuck the toes under, and we'll simply lift the hips up. Gently press the legs back, move the hips back and up. So we don't have to straighten the knees. Just really work with lifting the shoulders, lifting the hips, pressing back, release the neck. And then bend the right knee down, left leg straight, and then switch side to side. We're just going to do a handful of these. So straight leg, we press in the heel, knee that bends, won't necessarily get to the mat. We're not trying to touch it to the mat. We're just letting it sink down. Gently pushing down that straight heel and stay lifted in the back. It's easy to slump into our shoulders, and we want to keep ourselves out of the shoulders, keep the weight in the hips, down the legs. A couple of more bends side to side. Okay, last time, knees back down, and then we're just going to switch right away onto our back body. And once we're down on the back, just release the spine under the ground. Feel where the weight is. Letting go. So position the arms where they can relax on the ground. Let the shoulder blades release down. Gently lengthen the neck. And then let's flatten our sacrum. So use the core to gently press sacrum flat. Okay, at some point we're going to inhale, and when we do, let go in the hips. Take the weight down to the top of the tailbone. Lift the low back up off the mat. So keep the shoulders relaxed, but create an arc in the spine up to roughly where the shoulder blades are. At some point, we're going to breathe out, and then we're going to release the back down and let it sink. And as we make that exhale longer, we'll flatten the sacrum again and gently press down with our sacrum. We'll go back and forth a couple more times. And so you can just keep the shoulders released down as we make this arc back and forth through the back. And then when we're exhaling, releasing the back down, and then bring the knees up and use the hands to move the knees toward the shoulders. Let the back, the hips release into the ground. Take all the weight of the legs in the hands. And then when we're breathing in, expand the ribs, but we'll also expand the low belly. And then breathing out until we're really clear that our belly is sinking down into our hips. And then as we're exhaling, bring the knees in close. And then use the hands to smoothly circle the knees. And as we're circling the knees, locate the sacrum. And see if we can adjust it flat. And then doing our best to keep it flat. So maybe not as big a circle for our knees. A different shape to the circle, perhaps. When we're ready, we'll switch our direction for our circle. And then pausing with the legs wide. Now use the hands to draw the knees a bit closer to the shoulders. And then when you're ready to, relax the hands and let the knees just slip out from the hands and the feet land. And then drop the arms onto the ground away from the sides. And now let's extend our legs. So scrape down one leg, then the other. Adjust arms and legs so they're able to let go on the ground. Have the back and hips comfortable, releasing into the mat. And then simply following the breath. And let's move again in our fingers, in our toes, through our ankles and our wrists. Moving along the arms, down the legs. And extending as we're ready. Reaching out in the hands, pressing out through the feet and lengthening our back body. And we need our exhale. We'll draw our legs in, taking hold and rocking gently. And we'll take ourselves onto either side, bringing ourselves to sitting as we're ready. Namaste.